evening, good afternoon, I think. I want to call on stage Lexas Mshairi. And yes. I'm supposed at this stage to introduce him, big titles and things like that, and some of the poetry, ama mashairi ambayo ametunga. But karibu tu kwenye kiti. And then the next person I want to invite is called Oyamo Richard. Oyamo. Yeah. And I think what we are going to do is just maybe have a conversation. I think, Yeah. The point is to have a conversation. And I think we are supposed to have a nice conversation. So please try and put your attitude together for the sake of this nice conversation. I think we'll start with Lexas Mshairi. Yeah. You just tell us easily about who you are.
Okay. Hi guys. Mkopoa nimeacha wasome la, so making sure we're alive. So my name is
Professor Kiongea ama nini?
My name is Lexas, Lexas, Lexas Mshairi. I am a multidisciplinary artist. What I mean by that is I am a performing poet and instrument.
See Mimi. Okay. I'm excited.
Yes, so I am a performing poet, an instrumentalist, a songwriter. I am an author of a Sheng Kamba poetry anthology called Roga Nisiroge. I am a digital artist, so I create 2D animation and I illustrate. I'm a art therapist, so I went to KU. I have a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in sociology. Actually, Dr. Shikuku ndo alikuwa ananipea chance ya kuperform Culture Week. So now that we are here, it's very funny that he actually gave me a platform and has given me another platform right here. That is very beautiful. We used to perform with Oyamo those many years back, and now we are getting a platform again here to talk about that. I'm also a co-founder of Rafinki. And just briefly, Rafinki comes from the word Rafiki, but the reason we have N between I and K is because of the ink. We are friends united by ink. Get it? Yeah? Nice. We're on the same frequency, okay.
So I think that's very nice. Lakini kwa sababu he has said that he does poetry pia in Kikamba.
Yes.
So I'm going to challenge him to give us a poem in Kikamba, a verse too. Yani,
okay.
Hata kama ni 2 lines, tuna tamaa ya Kikamba.
So, Mami kivela ni chaka mota, tata mutwaite chumwa, tate mosa weani, nduene meani. That in English is mother.
Pigeni makofi kwanza, pigeni makofi. Asante sana.
That in English is mother behind father's motorcycle. He is taking her to church. He is taking her from work. Don't they look lovely?
Wow, okay. I think I just love this. Let's listen to Oyamo. Tuambie, majina yako ni Oyamo Richard. Tuambie, who are you?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Oyamo Richard. I am I'm a writer, I am an editor, and I'm a teaching artist. And I'm also a co-founder of Rafinki. And yes, as you saw in the morning session, I'm a performing poet. That's it.
Okay, that sounds interesting. You know, I'm used to poets having dreadlocks, so I'm a little like impressed by. What else do you do? What is your poetry all about? What direction do you take your poetry?
Well, I don't really confine myself in maybe a certain theme. Basically what I do is I write poetry and perform poetry that is drawn from day-to-day inspiration. This is my anthology, I'm holding it here. And it has around 80 poems, around 5 different themes. So that's just to say that I'm that versatile. And even when performing, I perform Swahili poems, like proper Swahili. Yeah, and at times I do English. So I'm that
Tupe
versatile.
kionjo.
Okay. Akawaza awapigie simu, akakumbuka Siawa na shida zao. Awapigie simu, akakumbuka hawa na shida zao. Hivi sasa ameketi sakafuni. Upande wake wa kushoto ni yale matapishi ya juzi. Macho yake ameelekeza televisheni. Haangalii, hatazami, ni macho tu ameelekeza. Mkono wake wa kulia ni kijembe ameshikilia. Alafu anaanza kutafuta mishipa. Anaanza kukatakata. Anakatakata, alafu damu inaanza kutiririka, tiriri. Alafu anakata roho.
Asante, huyo ni
Thank
Oyamo
you.
Richard, asante sana. So, let's go back to Mshairi. What inspires your poetry? Why, for example, this poem you've done in Kikamba hivi?
Yeah.
That's your kind of poetry, isn't it?
Yes, Kikamba and a lot of Sheng and a lot of that, yeah.
So what inspires your poetry? What makes you do that poetry?
I can say from a lot of life experiences and from a lot of research, but I try so much to document the human experience. Yeah, and part of that too, like part of the conversation too, is finding a way to provide a platform for the poetry in terms of concept poetry theatrical shows. And part of that is, like, in how poetry or spoken word has evolved in the country is in the last, or somewhere in around 2008, people met in a particular club and people were performing punchline poetry and they were doing it for the fun of entertaining people. And now that has kind of evolved to be more of a more well thought out production where you have a storyline before you create what you're creating. For me, in like staging Roga Nisiroge, I wrote Roga Nisiroge for 1.5 years. And so like the ideation of that and now staging it on this platform like is kind of interesting because it's the way that you're staging it is very complicated. It's not like how you have an MC in between your sets. It's the MC came on stage, introduced your show, went out and you did an entire production that looks like a play. And then once you're done, then people will say what they got from that. At least one of the comments that I got from a friend who I actually met today from last year is that the production that we did was hypnotic. Because I am a Mganga, I come from Ukambani, so mi unaroga watu.
Oh, okay, that's nice. Do you do any poetry in any other platforms? Have you? Okay, yeah, it's easy to say platforms. Have you tried to? You know, yesterday we had people talking about artificial intelligence and technology and so on. Have you tried to incorporate any aspects of artificial intelligence and all these fancy things that they talk to us about?
Fancy things.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say entirely, but my transition in the poetry scene is finding a more broader way to sell my work digitally. Because it's easy for me to stand on a stage and say, I do poetry and you guys will listen to me. But at the end of the day, I need to convert my numbers online to make people come to my show. So that, in a sense, is why partly I mentioned animation, because then I have to find multidisciplinary ways of selling the craft. So, yeah.
Okay, I like that. I wanted to ask Oyamo, you know, I mean, you've gone to the difficult task of actually getting published. I don't know if it's difficult. You have a publishing house, you have someone who's published you. I wanted to know if you can tell people here, some people here are poets also, and they would love to publish. Would you just give them a story about your journey to publishing? Is that your first publication?
Yes, this is my first solo publication. Luckily, I happened to be published in other poetry anthologies before, but it was more of a collection from a number of writers. So this is the first one that I did as a solo project. And my journey was quite different in the sense that people started asking, when are we having your own book out? And when people started asking and having been published alongside people with names in the scene, I felt probably I'm ripe enough to publish my book. So what I did is I sourced some funds, approached a publishing house. The publishing house also published a book for Rafinki, so I had that connection with them. I happened to be connected by a lecturer, so I approached them and shared my idea about the book. So the editor asked me to share the poems. I remember sharing around 130 poems, and then it went through the editing process. They were cut down to 80. And then the next step was buying of the ESBN number, copywriting. We had to create the cover page. And yeah, that was it. Then we went to the production phase, which is the printing of the copies. Yes.
Okay. I'm actually impressed. Congratulations for that, I think.
Thank you.
Would you, for the purpose of our audience here, perhaps you can pick the best poem you think is in there, and just give us a read.
The best poem?
Yeah.
I don't think
Does
I can
the pressure
do
increase or
that.
decrease?
Increases. I don't think I can choose a best poem.
Okay, a sweet poem.
Okay, let me see.
So we can dedicate it to someone in the audience, perhaps. Or they are not sweet. Yeah. No pressure. No pressure.
It increases or decreases?
Yeah. Do you have publications of your own?
Yes, I have written the Roga Nisiroge book, but I never carried it today.
Okay.
It's a Sheng and Kamba book. So yeah.
Okay, we'll be asking you the same, perhaps.
Okay.
Or is that what you gave us already? The
Yeah, it's
sweetest?
actually part of the book.
But is that your sweetest one?
But
No.
I think
Of course, we are talking like this as he fixes. Have you found it? Have you found something sweet in the covers of your book? Yeah.
So I'll read this poem. I don't think it's the sweetest,
Yes.
but I like reading it or reciting it to people because I know how controversial it may be. Because people have their own interpretations. So here's the poem. The poem is called Sipping the Juice. I am not the kind who just table their body and mind at the parlor to drink the juice. Skillfully I sweep my juice, licking all the spots. To me it's at spot, but before the harvest, I like to toil, my sleeves to fold, deep in my pocket and sow the seed of beauty, refine my voice to flutter with fertilizer of praise, collecting the fruits, eliminating the gone bad, cuddling the ripen, washing it from head to tail, peeling off the skin, using my own fingers, caressing every part of it, chew the peel in a slow motion, blend the flesh on my own flesh, letting out saliva.
Ooh, okay. I'm not even asking you to clap. You may do though. So, yeah, I think so. But that's one kind of poem. Of course, you have a serious other. Do you consider? Do you have what you call serious poems? Things which you think are serious.
Yeah, they are.
What are they about? What is a serious topic to you?
A serious topic to me is is when right now you say, Rarara must go.
Okay.
That's a serious topic.
Yeah, that's a serious topic.
Yeah. So I think a serious topic tends to change with time. It may be a serious topic now, and maybe in 10 years it won't be. There's a time a friend challenged me to write about LGBTQ. And her reason was, I've never seen you writing about LGBTQ, and I need to see your poem about it. Which I did, I wrote, but then I wasn't compelled to. So when I'm writing, I don't write because this is a serious topic. I write because I feel compelled to talk about this particular topic at this moment. And I feel the people around me or myself are going through this particular topic. Yes, the book has 5 chapters. There's a chapter on mental health. There's a chapter on love and romance. There's a chapter on poetics. There's a chapter on death. There's a chapter on birth. There's a chapter on dreams and ambitions.
So I wanted to know, I mean, is there a work which, when we read and we say it's your poem, amongst those ones, is there one that really identifies you? You see, you can write a poem. Anybody can write a poem. But you can write, if I wrote a poem, I mean, I'd need people to identify the person, the me in the poetry. Do you have such things, or do you write abstractly from a distance? What can we say is flesh and blood of you in those poetries, in your poetry? Is there something, or is it for others to find out?
I'm not sure if there is what really identifies me from reading it. It's something I'm also trying to learn in finding your own voice. But then when I was done publishing this book and now it was time to sell it and distribute out there, I was really afraid because I felt like people are going to know me more than they should. Yeah, from reading the book. They're going to know things that at some point I wouldn't want them to know. Usually when someone reads the book and they want to ask a question from the book, I try to evade it because I don't think I'm ready to answer those questions. So I usually hope someone buys and read the book on her or his own and stay with it. So I think from reading the poems, you can get to know me and know who I am as a person, what I believe in, what I hate. Some are very controversial, but I think I'm yet to find my personal voice that when I write every poem, you can tell this so-and-so. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Mshairi? Look,
Yes.
we actually don't know you.
Okay.
You just came here, you've told us who you are, but we really don't know you. But I suspect there's a kind of poetry that we will hear from you and we might get to know you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What sort of topic is that?
From a person who struggles...
Do you have one poem which you know, definitely that's me?
Yes. I tend to feel like, from a person who struggles with anxiety, I gravitate towards mental health work or work that pushes people to healing more than anything. But of course, I'll talk about global experiences and I'll talk about, global warming, I'll talk about climate change, I'll talk about gender-based violence, but from a point of the self and the soul and self-identity. Like I'm talking so much about...
You see, for example,
yes.
If you talk about gender-based violence,
yes,
there are some people who might write a poem about gender-based violence
yes,
because they have experienced gender-based violence.
yes,
And so they'll point to a particular poem and say, hey, by the way, this is me at 16 years of age.
yeah,
when I was living with my father and mother,
Yeah.
and I observed how my father attacked my mother, etc.
Yeah.
And so it's in the poem.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm making you sweat, I mean, with that question, because you'll have to tell us, do you have personal experiences? We want to know you like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I write from experience
Yes.
before
So
anything.
can you tell us one poem where you think we will know you, we can get an experience of you, a piece of you, so to speak? Hey, I'm putting pressure.
Yeah, they are longer poems, so I'm wondering if you would like me to do
Yeah,
that.
just
Okay.
not necessarily say them.
Yeah.
Just tell us. Okay, what's that poem called? For example,
that poem is called Mutiso.
Mutiso.
Yes.
Okay, who's Mutiso?
Mutiso is my elder brother.
What happened?
So when I was growing up, I experienced violence when I was younger. And it wasn't like on me, it was me seeing my father and my mother doing some whatever.
Yeah.
And so because I was living with my elder brother, I kind of figured that he kind of picked some traits psychologically without thinking about them. And so when I went to stay with my brother every other time, I would see him and his girlfriend fighting. But there were very like faint memories in my mind. So when I was writing the poetry, I was trying to see, so where's the thin line between where you've grown up and you have personal experiences with life, and how does that tie with gender-based violence? Because I feel like expressing my poetry from a point of personal, it's easier for people to connect rather than me talking abstractively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you give us maybe a
short
verse
time.
of it? Yeah, a version of it.
Niko class 6. Hii asubuhi ina feel stretch refu sana katikati ya mlango wa nyumba na gate. Nimeshika kamba za viatu nikidebate kama nafaa niende ama ni breko tunafaa kuwait. Bro ametoka na sidhani ameambia yoyote atarejea. So sidhani itakuwa wise kumtegea Mutiso before watoke what I saw ni miguso ya marks za makucha kwa uso. Pande ingine ni demu yake, nywele yake ikiwa imechakaa. Pia uso yake kuna vile inakaa iko na madents. Though it all depends vile wewe utaamua kuiona. Kitu ni siku dhani asubuhi nitaiona. Kitu ni nimekuwa nimeshtuka usiku mzima baada ya brother kwanza na masoki na demu yake na kutisha na madaka.
Wow, okay. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I'm already feeling something. Yeah. Oyamo, do you have, you know, I've pushed you into that sort of direction, but can you think of something that tells us about your history in that light? We're looking for depth of emotion.
So yeah, most of the poems here are things we do in the dark. So.
Ooh, okay.
You
know, you're saying things we.
Yeah, things we, because
things I do in the dark. I mean.
No, some things I write here are about my brothers and friends, and what they do in the dark.
What about yourself?
So not everything is about me, but then I'm just thinking on top of my head.
Yeah.
This is part of the poems that I did in the morning, and it's about my relationship with my father. I believe my father loves me, and he does everything to show that. And it's a debate or a conversation we were having with fellow friends, and I think it's almost the same with most of us, especially the gents, that you realize the connection between boy child and the father is very minimal. For example, when you call each other, with the dad is always straight to the point. Are you in school? Yes. Uko Nairobi, umeenda maandamano? Hapana, aya sawa. But with the mom, we might end up, when I call my mom to say a certain thing, we end up talking until the minutes are depleted. I have again to buy and again talk for another like an hour, and yet I haven't shared the same thing. Yeah. There's a time I stayed with my father and would stay in the house for like an entire day without saying anything to each other. And it's not like there's something wrong between us. Yeah, so it's something that usually disturbs me because then it means it's difficult for me to share anything with my father. I'll readily share with my mother. And I was just thinking, as a male, and I'm looking forward to marrying someone beautiful and having kids, I wouldn't want my son to have the same say. So this poem is called Dear Father. Yeah, I did it in the morning, so probably if I could do some few lines.
Yeah, that's what we want, yeah, that's what we'll...
Dear Father, I pour words onto this letter with pure love. Everyone says I'm your favorite child. I do not doubt. But there are things this relationship of ours hasn't favored me to ask. Things that the ingredients of this relationship hasn't allowed me to flavor with. Let's begin with, who poured ice on your heart? When is the last time that you genuinely cracked your ribs? What is your definition of love? And I'm not asking if you do love us. I know you do. It's evident to you that love is a verb. But do you ever wonder why we don't celebrate you on your birthdays? Do you ever wonder why you barely occupy space on our statuses on Father's Day? Do you consider it cheat that the world's men's day is on the same date with the world's toilet's day? Do you mind that my calls home are directed to mom and not to you, that my call with you is always treated like a prescribed dose, keen not to over or underdose, especially overdosing? At times I wonder how mom fell for someone so stone cold. She says that you're not really the man she married 25 years ago, that then you're the definition of Prince Charming, the funniest guy to ever grace her stage of humor. And I wonder, at what point did it change from my sunflower to Mama Watoto? Yeah, that's it. So
there, that's Oyamo, Richard. Now, I want to invite the audience. Possibly you guys want to interact with this gentleman. I don't know if we can pass a mic around, or 3 minutes, 3 people. Okay, so yeah, I've been directed to have 3 people asking questions. We shall have our lady here at the beginning, at the front, from Masai Mara University.
Yeah, my name is Keton, and I'm beginning from Dr. Fred Mbogo's problematic question in the morning about how the serious problem of profession and can one ever make ends meet. So I'm posing that question to the two of you. Do you think art pays, or do you find it problematic? Number 2, to a student pursuing Bachelor of Arts in Literature, Theatre, and Film, what would you tell them, or what would you advise them? Because I meet students in their first year, when they come in and they hear that they are going to do literature and theater, they start asking you whether they can do education instead of theater. They become so demoralized. And even at the end of the 4 years, they keep saying, where will we find jobs? So to you, what can you tell such students?
Okay. There's a lady there, here. Merci.
Hi, my name is Mora. Lexas, you talked a little bit about concept poetry, and I got very interested because I've been to your show, and I was part of Rich's show. But I want to know, if you had to talk about components of a concept show, what would that look like? What is the one thing, if I wanted to get a concept show going, whether it's music, whether it's poetry, what is that one thing I should really be keen on? Thanks.
Okay.
Check. Good afternoon, everyone. Mko salama?
So my name is Daniel Simeo, and I'm very familiar with these 2 young gentlemen. And my question is just a provocative question, yani igniting ideas and such. In less than 2 sentences,
nyinyi wawili nyote mtuambie what is the future of poetry, because our theme is igniting the future, sustainable innovation and social impact in performing arts. In the case of poetry, how does the future look like?
Okay. There's a gentleman at the yeah there.
Hi. Yeah. Cheers.
We don't know why they are clapping.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, my name is Mogambi. I love the work these two guys do, but my question is, as multidisciplinary, disciplinary, yes, artists.
Yeah.
Do you end up getting to the point where you are stretched thin, trying to make ends meet, and how do you contain that? Because that happens to so many other artists in similar.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. There's a gentleman with a question here. Yeah, we shall not forget. I think that will be the last. But now there's a lady also. Okay.
Incidentally. Hello.
Hi.
Incidentally, the question has been asked to the young men. It is about the future of poetry.
Oh, okay.
But I like to ask Oyamo on a light touch that when did you become so close to your mother that you despise your dad? Because, you know, when you get a man getting closer to the mother and the father is saying from sunflower to Mama Watoto, you know, Mama Watoto is the only one who knows who is the father of the child. So when you are writing the poem, did that cross your mind? You know, poetry is emotive. Poetry is emotive, and poetry is expressive, and it is intimate. It is very intimate. It brings out what you are.
Okay, some sections of the questions are interesting. Okay, let's have the lady, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. I wanted to ask, how can one join Rafiki? Yes, I will need to send an application. And then I'm wondering, do you get, the way you said you have anxiety, Lexas, and also do you get scared that you may run out of ideas to write, you may run out of poetry to write, or what you may write next may not really be the your best piece, you know? Do you get that anxiety as a writer? And if you do, how do you end up dealing with it?
Okay. I'm assuming that's pretty much. Should I start?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So starting in that question, I feel butterflies every single time. I don't know if you noticed, somewhere between when Oyamo was performing, I kind of closed my eyes. Oh, okay, you never noticed, that's fair. So I get anxious a lot of times, and a friend told me that anxiety is okay. It's okay to feel butterflies in your stomach every single time that you're going on stage. And I love that I have butterflies every single time, because it shows me that I am very keen with what I'm doing, and I do not want to be overconfident or let my ego take the lead. I want to serve people. And that's the primary role for me. I want to be able to serve people and give people something valuable. So when I get anxious, I feel like it's important. And then just tied to that question, first of all, I do not believe in writer's block. And this is my reasoning around it. I feel like if I am challenged to write about something, and I dive into research properly, and I dive into like my personal experiences and memories, I'll be able to create something. It doesn't need to be too extensive, but I'll be able to create something. So I feel like the moments that I am unable to create, I'm saying unable in quotes, when I'm unable to create, I try to be alive in a sense, to be more into life and to just rest and to allow creativity to take its course, in a sense. Because there is a problem when you rush creativity. Okay, concept shows, or before I get to concept shows, how do you balance multidisciplinary art forms? First of all, that's why I struggle. I never say I am a poet, exactly. I say I'm an artist, because I usually feel like the moment you call yourself a poet, you're already putting a barrier to what you can create. And so I want to wake up every single day and I want to create. Not necessarily poetry, I want to be able to create. And that's very important for me, because then I do not have like barriers in my mind in terms of how far my art form can go. And so whether I'm creating digitally, whether I'm creating like playing instruments, I feel like I'm creating, and that's the core of who I am as a person. So, yes. Does art pay? Does poetry pay? For answering that question, I want to give it context. Spoken word is one of the youngest, especially spoken word poetry, is one of the youngest art forms in the country. So I was dating back to 2008. That's where people sat in a club and performed poetry for the first time. Or somewhere around 2006, the farthest I can go back. And poetry started to be a bit serious around 2013. So as an art form, it has not evolved as much as music has. So the thing is, when you stand on stage, and I come to stage and I am a musician, the DJ will put a playback, and I can sing a song over and over, over and over and over and over, and people will pay money to watch that. But when it comes to poetry, every single time I'm coming on stage, people want new material. It's a lot of pressure. That's why I say, does the pressure increase or decrease? Exactly. So, like, it's usually very tricky for poetry, especially when you understand, like, writing a poem can take you a month, 2 months, 3 months. You can imagine if you're on stage every week, how much pressure is that in terms of creating? Anyways, does poetry pay? Yes, in different forms. So, a concept poetry theatrical show is one way, and another, a more quote-unquote sustainable way is merchandising. And I've seen people make not a very decent living, but make something out of their art through merchandising. And when I say merchandising, is one of the things is publication. Part of the things is, you know, like having merchandise to accompany your products. So like I did a show called Roga Nisiroge, and then I have tote bags, I have buttons. They're not like, you cannot like, I wouldn't say like necessarily make too much money from it, from merchandising, but it's one of the ways that I've seen people make ends meet every single day. And of course, slowly the art form is getting sponsorship from like partners and stuff. The likes of Goofy are partnering with, I don't know, Fresh to stage an entire concept show for 2 days. So I feel like the art form in itself is getting where it's supposed to be getting. I'm rushing through the questions to try and balance everything. How can one join Rafinki? It's very easy. There is a very small annual fee. It's what? Okay, yes. There's a very small annual fee, and if you just like DM Rafinki official on Instagram or anywhere, they'll just share a number of details with that. Yes, and concept shows. It's my last question.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So before you settle on doing a concept poetry show, you need to have a proper script. And I said in my experience, I wrote a show for 1.5 years. For someone else, they can just wake up, write it overnight, and come and stage it. But I am very specific with what I'm creating, so I take a longer time to create. And it's not the most sustainable way of creating, but you need to have a proper like script, and that comes from a place of ideation. So I want to stage something different from the rest, and I'm going to do it. And then I need to find people that I gravitate towards. So I feel like I need a vocalist in my set, or at least I need 2 vocalists. I'll get 2 vocalists. I feel like I need a piano on my show. I'll get a pianist. But I'll source different people who have different capabilities from my network of creatives that I know. And so then the planning and logistics, there is the rehearsals, and for me, in my experience, I'm speaking from experience, so that it doesn't look like very, like it's a blanket way of doing it. It's just like how I've personally been able to do it. I personally did rehearsals for 3 months. And so that's studio rehearsals, so I'm going to the studio to just come up with the musical aspect of what I'm doing. But because mine is very musical than anything, on a lot of theater, I kind of find other way to balance that. And then marketing and promotion. For me, because I have a digital inclination, I worked alongside a digital studio. So that, in a sense, relieves the pressure from me in terms of creating marketing materials for my show. And then the event itself, and then you have to do post-show activities like having documentaries that will sell the show post the show. And so like other people will stage a show and then put it up on a platform where you pay per click. So I'll be done with my show, charge the tickets, and now I'll get to harvest money from a show without necessarily, and I feel like some of you already know what pay-per-click is, but you can as well like make money from that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, I'll try to save on time. So number one, does art pay? I believe it does pay, and I think it needs you to strategize yourself in the right way or places. It reminds me of a joke. Someone said that the only people who earn from Forex is those people who train people how to trade and not the trading itself. So at some point, doing the art itself, I'm still conflicted on whether the people who are actually practicing the art itself are earning from it, from that. So I tend to believe that one needs to, like we were sharing in the morning, one needs to have some other complementing job or a task that will give him income, and then do art as an additional thing. I'm trying not to use sideshow, as Tash corrected me, as an additional thing. So yeah, that's my answer to if art pays. On the students who are pursuing theater, literature, I myself pursued English and literature at Kenyatta University. And then I was done, I went to teach. I taught for like a year, and then I had huge doubts on whether I want to teach, especially in that environment. But then I think it's a matter of pushing the wheel and finding spaces. For example, when I was publishing this book, at some point the book stalled for like a year, and I didn't have funds. And my publisher kept on asking, "Hii kitabu tamaliza nini?" And I'm like, "Hey, Buddha, mimi, I'm not employed, zina do, so let's just chill." So eventually, he was like, "You did English and literature. We can train you to do editing." And we agreed. So I was trained to do editing, and then I did a number of tasks as a form of paying for the publication of the book. And from it, even after the publishing of the book, they decided to retain me. So, and I think it's because I did the English and literature. So I think we can always explore other forms, because I feel, especially for theater and literature, there are many forms that we can earn from other than teaching or just being in theater. So that's it. Future of poetry. I hope no one will misquote me for this. But future of poetry, I would say poetry is... No, let me not use that. Let me just say, I would say poetry, because it's still very young. What I want to say is poetry is still virgin, and that means there's still a lot of exploration to do on it. On what Prof said about Mama Watoto, well, I think it's because I stopped the poem at that point. But basically what I was trying to do is, at that point, we were questioning, or I was questioning, the African way of showing love. And the question was, is it a taboo to show love in the open? Most of us probably have never seen our parents even hug. And you wonder, why is it so? Why don't they hug? And comparing in the Western culture, parents hug in the open, and I think it should be that way. So we were just questioning, why is it so? Is it a taboo to even hug in the open as parents? So it's because I stopped there, but it goes on starting from, it changed from My Sunshine to now Mama Watoto, and now we never see even them hugging, and why is it so? So that's it. But then again, I think art is subjective, and yeah, it's open to everyone's interpretation. How to join Rafiki, Lexas has touched on it. There's an annual fee, and then one key thing is you need to be a writer or a poet yourself. You need to be an artist. Atutaki my fans. Yeah, just to say it. And then if I get anxiety as a writer or performer, yeah, I do. Even when I was called upon to come here, I was, will I do it? Yeah. But at times, what I usually do when I'm anxious is I drink a lot of water. So when you see me sipping water, it's anxiety. Or the other thing is I scream, but I can't do it here, so. The last thing about concept shows, I think Lexas touched on everything. The only thing I'll need to add is learn to incorporate other acts. You can incorporate dancer. You can incorporate something like mimicking, mime, puppetry, such kind of things. Okay. Thank you.
So I think we've come to the end of our conversations. I want you to clap for this gentleman. Yeah, and possibly I'm going to push them I'm going to challenge them to give us an impromptu performance, a verse perhaps, about the way they are dressed, because it looks very deliberate, isn't it? So if they're real poets, surely, they should give us an impromptu of vile wamedunga. Okay.
Niseme kitu kuhusu vile nimedunga na mimi sijisikii kuaddress.
Okay, sawa. Pressure.
Lexas, you're bad. I would say I'm not a violent person, but once in a while, mi upiga luku.
Thank you. Wazi. Thank you. That has been our session. That's been our session. I want to invite Dr. Shikuku to finish on a high note.
Mimi si msanii wa sanaa. Thank you so much, Dr. Fred Mbogo, for that very lively session.